All right, so welcome back for episode 5 of the Work and Play podcast Unlocked. Now, if you remember back in episode 4, we did a deep dive into building a loyal audience
Right.
and how to give them something valuable.
Uh-huh.
Today, we're looking at episode 112 of Work and Play with Arylle Young and web designer Joy Shaney.
Okay.
And we're going to put the conversation itself under the microscope.
You know, it's interesting because I think that a really good conversation is valuable in itself.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what keeps people coming back for more, hitting that subscribe button.
For sure.
So today we're going to break down what made this conversation tick and how other podcasters can learn from it.
Sounds good.
And what could have been even better. And I highly recommend after you're done here, you check out the original episode just to get a little bit more context.
I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I listened to this episode was how genuine the conversation was between Arylle and Joy.
Yeah.
It felt less like a formal interview and more like two friends just talking.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Authenticity is so important when it comes to podcasting.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where Joy talks about her cat like walking across her keyboard during a client presentation.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just hear them both crack up. It's those little moments of realness and human connection that make people feel like they're actually part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's what makes me want to listen to a podcast. You know, not just the information that's being shared, but also feeling like I'm in the room with them.
Exactly.
But, you know, it did feel like the conversation went in a few different directions. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it keeps things fresh, but sometimes I felt like they were only scratching the surface of some really interesting topics.
It's a really fine line, isn't it? That structure versus spontaneity.
Yeah.
And I actually think that a loose outline can be a podcaster's best friend.
Okay.
You know, think of it less like a script and more like a trail of breadcrumbs.
Okay.
It just keeps you from getting completely lost in the woods, but still lets you explore. Like when Joy mentioned switching from running her own business to working for a big company, I was so curious about that.
Right.
I bet there were so many challenges, so many lessons learned, a goldmine of insights that they could have dug into a little bit deeper.
I see your point. I do like that breadcrumb trail idea.
Right.
I'm definitely someone who likes to make lists and outlines for everything.
Right.
But I also wonder if, you know, sticking to an outline too closely can kind of kill the magic sometimes. You know, those unexpected turns in a conversation, those are the things that can lead to the most interesting places.
You're absolutely right. It's all about finding that balance.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best moments happen off script. But for newer podcasters especially, you know, having that trail of breadcrumbs, I think, can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Make sure that they hit those key points.
For sure.
And don't leave listeners feeling lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of feeling lost, I did feel like there were a couple of times where the topic jumped so fast.
Ow.
I had to rewind to make sure I was still following.
Transitions. They're like the secret sauce to a smooth conversation.
Okay.
You know what? Here's a tip for all the podcasters out there. Before leaping to a new idea, take a moment to summarize the key takeaway from the previous one,
Okay.
especially if it was a complex topic. It's like giving your listeners little mental bookmarks.
Mental bookmarks. I like that. Okay. Switching gears a bit.
Yeah.
There was one thing that Arylle did that I thought was really brilliant.
Okay.
She kept talking directly to us, the listeners,
Yeah.
asking what we thought about certain things. It made the whole thing feel so much more interactive.
That's so important. When listeners feel like they're actually part of the conversation and not just eavesdropping, they're way more likely to stick around. And there's so many ways to take that even further.
Right.
Polls, Q&A segments, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
Okay, so to recap, authenticity is key.
Yes.
Finding that sweet spot between structure and going with the flow.
Yes.
Clear transitions. And don't forget to make your listeners feel like they're part of the conversation.
Big time.
Make them feel like they're part of the gang.
So here's my final thought for you. Think about the podcasts that you love the most.
Okay.
What is it about those conversations that makes them so captivating? What can you borrow from those techniques and bring into your own work?
That's a good question.
Now go and check out episode 112 of Work and Play and see these ideas in action. You will not regret it.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya, night.